you guys? Welcome back to my channel. And today we will be talking about Hannah Montana the movie. Now, the way Hannah Montana the movie starts off is with Robbie Ray shaking his head at the Hannah Montana wig because Miley is running late for the concert. And when they tried to get in to the back room to get ready for the concert, her and Lily have trouble getting in because the lady who is giving out the tickets. Okay, hang on, I gotta go back. So, Miley and her best friend Lily are trying to get into her concert so she can get ready to do the concert. So, they go up to the ticket line and Miley says, "It's Miley Stewart. We gotta get in there." And then Lily says, "Yeah, our names are on the list." And then the and 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 then the lady says, "Well, why didn't you say so in your dreams?" Next. And so Miley and Lily get pushed, and Lily says, "You are the only pop star I know who can't get into her own concert." And then Miley, Miley sees the go kart, and she sees the security guard distracted talking to someone. So she takes the go kart, and the security guard tries to stop her, but she makes she makes it to her dressing room because Robbie Ray says, it's okay, they're with me, go, 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 go." So Lily helps Miley get ready for the concert by picking out her outfit, helping her with her makeup, and helping her with the wig. And Miley is about to go on stage, but before she does, she told her dad that she loves him, and her dad tells her, "Don't forget, it is your turn to do the dishes tonight." And then Miley says, "I did them last night." And then Bill and 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 then Billy Ray says, "Hey, don't give me no lip. You are the one who wanted best of both worlds." And then she sings best of both worlds. And then the director says, "Cut. We will fix. We we will fix that bit in post. Hannah, as always, fabulous." And then Hannah says, "Thank you." And then she goes into her dressing room. But but a reporter in there called Oswald, and he goes up behind her, and she gets scared, and then he says, "It's alright, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright. I'm sorry. My girls are your biggest fans, and I promised my girls I would say hi to you for them. Hi." And my girls actually and my girl actually brought um brought out some questions. If if you have a second, do you mind? And then and 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 then and and then Miley says, not at all. And and then Vita, her manager, says, don't even think about it. And then Miley says, oh no, Vita, it's okay. And then Vita says, nope, nothing about this man is okay. And then Vita says, hello, Oswald. Hannah Montana, meet Oswald. He is the reporter from Ball Chic magazine, and he would like a story ending your career. And then, and then, and 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 then, and 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 then Vita says, "Look, Oswald, if you want to write something down, write this down. Country girl living her dreams. That's all we got. That's all you're gonna get. Now get out." But before he leaves, he does hide a camera in the sofa. And Vita says, how could you think that we have anything to hide? And then when she closes the tent, Vita says, he didn't see anything, did he? And then and and then Miley says, I don't think so. And then Vita says, good. Now, Hannah, honey, you can't talk to anyone unless I'm at your side. I'm your publicist. You just have to concentrate on what you do best, and that is singing your scrappy little heart out. And let me worry about everything else, like making sure your little secret stays the secret. And Miley says, sometimes I wish I can be Hannah all the time. And then Vita says, you and me both, kid. And then they leave the tent, but Oswald comes back in there, and he catches the part where but Oswald's come back in there for the camera, and he catches the part where Vita says, let me worry about everything else, like making sure your little secret stays a secret. And then his boss, Lucinda, calls, and Oswald tells her apparently they're the secret. And then Lucinda says, good. Now find out what that secret is. She is the most popular girl in the whole wide world, and I want every little detail of her outrageous, most glorious life. And then we cut to Miley at school. Okay, hang on. I got a question. Now, why wasn't there a security guard at that tent? And if there were and if there were security guards at that concert, then why didn't they recognize that Miley Cyrus was Hannah Montana? I mean, they're security guards. They can't tell anyone. So so we cut to Miley at school the next day getting hit by a dodgeball. And then Vita signals to her, get out here now. And then she tells Miley, I got some good news. Beyonce either has double pneumonia or a very, very bad cold. You are in the musical world. And then she says, yes. Now, what am I gonna sing? What am I gonna wear? And then Vita says, great minds, great minds. Now, Hannah Montana has to do a shopping, a, a shopping trip real quick. Last chance. And then, and, 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 and then, ooh, and, 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 and and, and then Lily says to Miley, Miley, what about my birthday party? And then Miley says, minor Hannah emergency. I, I will be there. I promise. So while she is at the store, Jackson is graduating and her dad is trying to call her so she could say goodbye and Jackson won't miss his plane to go to Tennessee to, to actually go to Tennessee University. But she but she is not picking up because she is too busy shopping. And Lily is trying to call her and 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 trying to get her to hurry up to the birthday party. Where Robbie Ray is also. He is also at the birthday party. Oh, and Rico and Oliver are there too. And they are trying to make Lily's birthday cake blow up fireworks so the fireworks can say happy birthday Lily. So so yeah. So yeah. And and while and 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 and, and, and while she is at the store, she realizes that she has 11 messages from Lily and 13 messages from her father about Jackson plane leaving. So, since Miley knows that Lily needs a birthday present, she tries to get her some shoes. But Tyra Banks said that she saw those first, and could you wrap them up? And she asked someone to wrap them up for her, please. But Miley says, well, I want the shoes for my best friend's birthday party, and she is turning 16 today. So her and Tyra get into a fight about getting the shoes. And this cause and this causes someone to record the fight on their phone. So while she is fighting with Tyra Banks, her dad and Lily are both trying to call her. And then when they get out of the store, Miley says that she didn't even get the shoes and that she is the worst friend in the world. And that her dad is never gonna forgive her not saying goodbye to Jackson. And they are being followed by Oswald, the reporter from Ball Chic magazine. And Vida sees him, and and and, and she actually tells the driver to step on it so the driver goes faster. And Miley says, I cannot get out of the car looking like Miley, and I cannot show up at Lily's party looking like Hannah. So with that in mind, and and, and with Miley rushing to get there, she show up as Hannah Montana. Um, Lily actually gets dumped. Lily actually gets Lily actually falls on the skating rink because the guy was holding her hand until he saw Hannah Montana, and then he just let Lily fall. And then, and, 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 and then, and, 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 and then, and, and, and then, and 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 then Miley says, "I I I I want to wish a happy birthday to my number one fan, Lily. She's over that way. She's over that way." And then Lily looks at her, and then she says, "I'm and 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 and." and And then Miley says that she is sorry, she didn't know what else to do, and that she will make it up to her, she promises. And then Lily says, "You will never, ever, ever make this up to me." And then she sings one of her songs, "Let's Get Crazy with the Band." And then when Lily starts to leave, Billy Ray tells Oliver to light the cake because they need to stop Lily from leaving. But Rico says that the cake's not ready yet because he doesn't have the birthday fireworks ready to go off. So, since everything wasn't plugged in, the cake just ended up exploding. And Rico showed up with a paper banner that says "Happy Birthday, Lily." And he comes out of the cake with cake all over his shirt and his face and his hair. And then Oliver says, "What?" And then when they're at the beach the next day, Robbie Ray showed Vida the magazine in the newspaper of Hannah Montana and Tyra Banks fighting, and 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 and, and Vida says, "I know it's everywhere, isn't it?" And then when Vida sees his face, she says, "Horrible, bad Hannah." And then and 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 and, and then Robbie Ray says, "Me and her need to have a conversation, excuse me." And then and 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 then and then and then Robbie and then and 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 then Vita says, "Now, but Mr. Ray, she's getting ready to go to New York. didn't she tell you there's an amazing opportunity? And then Billy Ray says, yeah, I know about New York. I got CC in an email. Not happening. Me and her are going down to Tennessee for her Grandma Ruby's birthday. Didn't she tell you? And then Robbie Ray calls her out and he says, a shoe fight. You got in a shoe fight? This is totally, without a doubt, so unacceptable, which pretty much describes all your behavior, lately. Standing up your brother, humiliating Lily at her own party, and then Miley says, I messed up, but I can't talk about this now. I got to go to New York. And then Robbie Ray says, so your grandmother's birthday doesn't even matter. And then Miley says, come on, Dad, this is totally different and you know it. And then Vita says, Robbie, Mr. Ray, Father of Montana, Hannah not going to New York is really not an option. And then Robbie Ray says, her name's Miley. And then and 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 and, and, and then Vita says, oh, and Miley will be back before she leaves. Come on, she's a superstar. I can give her a private jet if she wants. And so he agrees, and Vita go get goes and gets her a private jet, and Vita goes to New York to set up a meet and greet. So when they're on the jet, she is getting all Hannah up. She is getting all Hannah up to take some photographs and all this. And then when they make a stop, she goes out there and she says, hello, New York. And then it turns out that they're in Tennessee and they are driving in the next scene to her grandma's house. And then Miley tells her dad, Dad, come on. Hannah needs to be walking the red carpet in less than 5 hours. And then Robbie Ray tells her, Miley, all you ever wanted to do was sing. Hannah let you do that and still have a normal life. That was the dream, remember? But lately, I don't know what you're about anymore. So I'm saying I think we may be done. And then Miley tells him to stop the truck. And she gets all her suitcases out. And she says, I am going to New York, whether you like it or not. Rather, if you like it or not, and I don't want to do this, I want to go home. And then Robbie Ray says, but you are home. Look around you. And then, and, and, and then Hannah says, Hannah means everything to me. And then Robbie Ray says, and that right there might be the problem. And then she stops, and then she looks at her dad and says, so are you saying I can never be Hannah again? And then her dad says, ask me again in about 2 weeks. And then Miley says, 2 weeks? And Billy Ray says, think of it as a Hannah detox. Right now, let's just see if a country girl still exists. Now, come on, take that wig off and get back in the truck. And then Miley says, no, I am not getting back in the truck, Dad. I am going to New York, whether you like it or not, and I am not. And then, and then she sits down for a minute on her suitcases when her horse Blue Jeans take takes off the takes off the Hannah Montana way, and mm, and Miley says, "Give that back, you mangy little," and then and 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 then Bill and and then and then Robbie Ray says, "Well, look at that. A girl who doesn't even recognize her own horse. Now that right there truly is sad." And then she realizes that the horse is the horse that her dad bought for her, Blue Jeans, and her dad leaves and her dad leaves her there with Blue Jeans, and her dad says, "I will meet you at the house. It's just a mile up the road. And don't forget your suitcase." So, her so Robbie, Ray, and Jackson go up to the house to see the grandma. And Miley is about to ride Blue Jeans back, but Blue Jeans actually throws her off of him when she tries to get the suitcase as well to carry back. And then Travis showed up, and then he gets Blue Jeans under control by and then Travis showed up by getting Blue Jeans under control, well, by capturing him with a rope like a cowboy. And um Travis says, "Hi, are you alright? I'm sorry. Blue Jeans doesn't really take well to strangers, especially dirty, sparkly ones." And then Miley says, "I know, he's my horse." And then, and, and then this is when and, and, and then this is when, and, And then this is when Travis says, "Miley, it's me, Travis. Travis, what? Travis Blody. We were in the first grade together." And then Miley says that she remembers, and she also remembers Travis putting her head face down a well. And then he says, "I know, but I guess I had a pretty big crush on you back then. But don't worry about it, I'm over it." And then Miley says, "Good to know." So Travis takes her back home with the suitcase on Blue Jeans, and with Travis giving her a ride with Blue Jeans right by her side. And Travis asks her, "How long is she staying?" And then Miley says 2 weeks. And Travis says, "Well, good luck with that." And then and and then Miley says, "What's that supposed to mean?" And then Travis says, "Well, considering what you're wearing and the fact that you couldn't get back on your horse, I'm guessing that you went all California on us." And then Miley says, "I have not. You don't know anything about me or California." And then Travis says, "Okay, well, celebrity, they're just regular folks like you and me. And then Miley says, some are. And, and, and then Travis says, okay, you know any? And then she says that she knows Hannah Montana, that she saved her life surfing, and they are best friends. And then Travis says, best friends. And then they make it to the house, and then Travis says, you know, this is usually about the time somebody would say thank you. And then Miley says, I was getting there. And then Travis says, no need. I'll see you later, Smiley Miley. And then he tells Miley that it's his job to take care of the horses. So he's gonna take Blue Jeans and put them away. And so he says, I will see you later, Smiley Miley. And then and and then and and and, and then Travis and then Travis says, do you remember that's what I used to call you? And then Miley says that she remembers. And her grandmother and the rest of her family are singing, they're having a good time. And then Robbie Ray says, oh, come on, Miley, sing the next verse. And then her family tells her, yeah, Miley, sing the next verse. And then she tries, and then she says, I want my life back, Dad. And I'm like, Miley, why would you say that? Like, I know you're upset about not going to New York, but that's not reason to treat your grandma like that. And like, the grandma is so happy to see her too. So my so so my so Miley says sorry and says hi to everyone, and then she tells her grandma happy birthday, and then her and Robbie Ray. Okay, Robbie Ray tells her, "Listen, it's time for cake. I will collect the supper plates. You pass out the forks. It will give you an opportunity to say hi to a few folks. And then we meet cousin Derek, who had the pet ferret named Harlow. And then when Miley sees him again with Jackson, she looks at the ferret and says, what's with the rat? And then the guy has to correct her and says, ferret, Harlow. And then Miley says to Jackson, good to be home. And then Jackson says, yeah. And then Robbie Ray meets Lorelai, a new person in town who is new and a little shy. And when he picks up Lorelai's plate along with a bunch of other plates, he is so nervous around Lorelai that he ends up bumping into the grandmother's plate collection and destroying every plate that she collected over the years, including the new one, the Elvis Presley one. And I'm like, whew, That's got to be embarrassing. Cause he did it right in front of Lorelai too. I was like, whew. So that night, Miley is getting ready for bed, and her grandma comes to check on her, and and her grandma says, "I keep thinking I should change the wallpaper, but your mom picked this out when she was your age." And then Miley says that she likes it, and then her and 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 then her grandmother says, "You used to like a lot of things about coming to see me." And then Miley says, "Oh, Grandma." And then her grandmother says, "It's okay, I know it's not personal, but I just miss my Miley." And then Miley says, "Why does everyone keep saying that?" And then her grandmother says, "Maybe you should ask yourself that question. Cat, cat, caterpillar in a tree, who you wonder who you'll be. Can't go far, but you can always dream. Your daddy used to sing that to you every night." And then Miley says, "Not so much anymore." And then the next morning she says, "Commence Operation Save Hannah Montana." So she goes in there with braids and overalls, and she says that she's gonna go fetch them some eggs and go feed the chickens. But when her grandmother and father see her, they both look confused, like, who is that? Because she wasn't happy being here before. So she thinks if she be good, her dad may change his mind and not stop her from being Hannah Montana. So she is getting the eggs, but then the chickens don't like her getting the eggs, so they try to mess with her. And since she got the bucket, the chickens are chasing her. And then her aunt, so her grandma and her dad make a bet, and they say, "How long do you think it will take her to put down the bucket?" And then when she finally comes in with the egg, they have already eaten breakfast already. And then her grandmother says to get to 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 get herself cleaned up because her grandma is taking her to the farmer's market. And then Miley says, "Yay." So when they go to the farmer's market, so when they go to the farmer's market, Ruby sees um Ruby sees some of her old friends, and Miley is just so rude at this part of the movie when when her when her okay when her friend says, "I see that your granddaughter with you. Didn't she grow up fast?" And then Miley says, "Imagine what a little food and water will do." And then her grandmother coughs and says, and then Miley says, "Nice chat." And then her grandmother said the sweetest thing. She says, "After this, maybe you and me can do a little shopping." And then Miley looks at the store and says, "In there? No thanks, I'm good." And then her grandmother puts her stuff down and says, "Look, Missy, you may be Hannah Montana back home, but here we are breeches and boots. We are jeans and boots. And if that is not good enough for you, I suggest you pack up and go home. I'm sorry to be fussing at you, but I think it's just wonderful that you have a place like this to call home. And you should count yourself lucky." And then Miley said that she is lucky and she does think of it as home and that she is sorry. But even before they got there, she was rude because she found out about the fundraiser to save Crowley Corners because developers are circling like vultures to take it over and to put up apartment buildings and shopping malls and to get rid of all the open land. So, so her so so her grandmother says that she knows she is sorry and to come on, and they set up a booth to sell watermelon. But the guy, the reporter guy, Oswald, is still there trying to get his story. So he followed them to Tennessee. How he got there, I have no idea. So he followed them to Tennessee, and he is trying out some salsa, and he is asking people questions about Hannah Montana. And while he is trying the salsa, Miley switches them so he could try the hot, hot salsa. And so, since the salsa is so hot, he drinks out of a dog's bowl, and he does a funny dance when Miley makes somebody's produce spill all over the grounds. And when he is trying not to trip over the produce. I think those are, I think those well, like, I think those are like, I don't know what kind of produce there is, but he trips on the produce and actually destroys the prototype to the guy who is trying to build the buildings and take over Crowley Corners because there is a booth of him and he is saying you are looking at the future, and he is thinking of building malls and buildings there. But Grandma Ruby tells him that I and the rest of the communities are uh, are making our little fundraisers to stop this. And then he told Ruby, "You can have all the fundraisers you want, but you're not going to stop progress." And I'm like, "Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. You don't know what the Miley Ray family is capable of doing. Excuse me." So after they helped the guy up that fell, from all the produce that he tripped on. Hannah and her grandmother give give him the wrong direction on where to find the Hannah Montana family, and he falls in some mud. And then he gets a call from his boss, Lucinda, who says that she wants the dirt on the Hannah Montana story. Meanwhile, he's got his daughters on the other line listening to his phone call with Lucinda, and he is talking about the Hannah Montana story. And then the girls are like, "Oh my gosh, oh my goodness, have you met her yet? Oh my god, I love you so much. Have 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 have, have you met Hannah Montana yet? I love her so much." And then we cut over to Jackson and his new job at the zoo, and he is telling the kids about the ostrich. And then the ostrich is tr- is trying to bite him, and then he says, "Hey, we talked about this. Unless you want to see ostrich burgers at the snack bar, you're going to." And then and and then his boss says, "I'll take it from here. Go feed Miss Pearl." And I think Miss Pearl is the alligator. And poor Jackson, he just gets beat up by Miss Pearl. Like he drowns. Miss Pearl bites him. Like it's just so sad because the kids just think it's funny. But I just feel bad for Jackson. Because Miss Pearl is an alligator, I think. And then Travis is in the barn and he hears Miley singing, but he said that he didn't like the song because it wasn't about anything. It didn't tell Travis who Miley is or how she feels. And then he says, "Come on, saddle up." And then he gives Miley the saddles, and then Miley says, "Where are we going?" And then Travis says, "To show you what you're missing." So they go horseback riding, and and Travis tells Miley that he is rebuilding the coop so he can sell the eggs. And that is the deal that her grandma Ruby made with him. Like, if you rebuild the coop, you can sell the eggs for the summer. And then, so her and Travis start spending time together. Oh, and it turned out that Lorelai and Robbie Ray start spending time together as well. So that's good. And in the montage, Miley Miley actually takes off the wig, puts it in a suitcase to keep it safe. and she actually puts it in a closet. And over the few days, her and Travis and the dad and Lorelai, they start spending time together too. So in in the last montage that they do, Travis and Miley go swimming and they almost kiss, but then Travis says, "Hey, we better go. We don't want to be late for the fundraiser." So at the fundraiser, everybody is singing, and then Miley does the hoedown, and 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 then the developer who is trying to build the building in Crowley Corner, and then the developer who is trying to build the buildings in Crowley Corner in Crowley Corner comes in and says, "How much you guys raise tonight? 1,000, 2,000? Well, whatever it is, I'll double it." And then Grandma and then Grandma Ruby says, "We don't want your money." And then the developer says, "Look, you guys could have hundreds of these little things, and it's not gonna matter because you guys will never raise enough money to save this place." And then Travis just says, "Miley knows Hannah Montana. She saved her life surfing. They're best friends. She can help us out. We can row a concert, and that will save a ton of money." And then everybody looks at Miley and says, yeah, Miley, can you call it? Can you call it? Can you please? Can you do it?" And then, and, 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 and then Miley says, "Well, I guess I could give her a call." And then everybody cheers. And I'm like, "Travis, that was a conversation that you guys had in private. Why would you tell everyone that and put Miley on the spot like that?" But it's okay. But it, but it's okay. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. So in the next scene, we see Lily dressed as Hannah Montana coming coming in a limo down the road with Vita, her manager, and Vita says, "Oh, this small town girl saves hometown angle is genius. Not genius enough that you left me in New York and almost costing me my job, but genius nevertheless." And then and 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 then Lily and Miley make up and they hug, and Miley says he and then Miley says that she is sorry, and Lily says that she forgives her, and Lily says, "Oh, sorry about talking to that reporter guy." And Miley says, "What? You're the one who talked to the reporter? Lily, how could you?" And then Lily says, "Hey, I thought that this was your sorry, I'm sorry moment." And then Miley says, "It is, and, and I am, and I promise Hannah will never come between us again." Then Lorelai knocks at the door. Then Miley makes Lily pretend that she is Hannah. And when Lorelai comes in, Miley is giving Lily a foot massage to distract Lorelai. And and Robbie Ray actually calls Miley down so he could hold the ladder because because okay, so she can hold the ladder, and Robbie Ray tells her that that he is fixing her grandma's gutter. Hold the ladder for to hold the ladder for him. And then when he climbed up to Miley's room, it turned out that Lorelai is rubbing Hannah's feet, and my and then Miley tells her dad, technically they're Lily's feet. And then Robbie Ray says, "Stay." And then Robbie Ray tries to stop her, but it turned out that she's asleep. And Robbie Ray and Lorelai almost kiss, but Lily stops them. And then Lorelai opens a window that makes Jackson lose his balance because he was holding on to the window. And then he gets put in one of the squashes while his head gets put into one of the squashes. But in the next scene, he's okay because he just took a shower. And now they are eating cookies made of squash. Now everybody's eating cookies made of squash. But Lily is staring at Travis saying that she wants a cowboy, and and Miley says, "Sorry, that one's taken." And then Lily says, "Really?" And then Miley says, "Yeah. Well, I don't know. It looks like we're gonna be just friends, but he hasn't met Hannah yet." So Lily says, "Oh, look, it's Hannah Montana." And then Travis thanks her for coming, and then he asks Hannah Montana if if Miley would say yes to go out on a date with him. And then Hannah Montana tells Travis, "You should go ask her out." And then Travis says, "Really?" And then Hannah Montana says, "Yeah." So he plans to go ask her out that right that second. But Miley stops him, and and she actually tells Travis that Miley's not home, she's not home. She actually said something about going to the barn and brushing blue jays. "You should go meet her there. Go, 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 go. Meet her there, go." So Miley is trying to rush and get ready and to meet Travis at the barn, and her grandmother is watering her plants, and she says, "Slow down, hot stuff." So Miley is painting the barn, and Travis actually asks her out on the date, and she says, "Sure, cool." But the problem with this is with Lily actually promising that she would be there at the mayor's dinner with everyone there, including the mayor himself. She can't go. Hannah Montana cannot go on the date because Hannah Montana promised Travis, because Hannah Montana promised Lorelai that she would be at the Big Lobster hoo-ha. But I don't see why Lily just couldn't pretend to be Hannah just for that one day, but I guess we need our antics. And guess we need our silly little storyline. So what happens is Miley goes back and forth as Hannah and as Miley on her and Travis's date and at the Big Lobster dinner. And then when she tries to leave again, her father stops her and tells her no one is leaving from this table, nobody. So it turned out that the dessert is out and and, and it is Tennessee flambe, and so they light the cake up. But the ferret gets on the table because now the ferret likes Jackson. So now he is in Jackson's pocket. But since he saw a purse with the girl ferret, he wanted to go talk to it. He wanted to go talk to the purse. So with the ferret being on the table, everybody is scared and they are running, and somebody knocks the souffle over. The souffle that is actually on fire. So the table actually catches on fire, and everybody runs out of the building. And then Miley is so upset that she runs out in that big fancy dress, and she runs out with the wig, and Travis, and then Travis And then Travis goes out the door because he thinks that the date is over for the restaurant date. And my poor and the poor boy Travis was just sitting there waiting for Miley to come back because she kept coming up with an excuse like, "Oh, I don't have service here. Let me go outside and see if I can get service there." So while he is getting up and going to leave, he leaves, and then Miley comes back outside crying, trying to get back to the restaurant in time. But Travis has already seen the big outfit that Hannah Montana is wearing in the wig in Miley's hands. So he figures it out. And he says, "Miley, Hannah, whoever you are, we're done." And then Miley goes upstairs to cry. And then it turns out that Robbie Ray saw the whole thing, and and he actually breaks up with Lorelai because he says, "Right now, I just don't have time in my life for a relationship right now. Miley, Miley, and me need to sort through some things, and I kind of need to be there for her. I'm sorry." And then Lorelai says, "Well, me too, then, me too." So they break up, and in the next scene, her and her father sing together, "Butterfly Fly Away." And it's a very, very sweet father and daughter moment. And that night she writes in her journal, "Hannah Montana isn't real." And then on that same night she couldn't go to sleep, so she worked on the barn all night. And then when Lily finds her, she finds her asleep. She finds her asleep on top of the chicken coop. And Lily says, "Did you do this? Were you out here all night?" And then Miley says, "Just a just a little hard work is all." And then and then and 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 and, and then Miley says, "Life's a climb." And then Miley said at the time, and then Lily says, "Yeah, it's time." And so they run to get Miley ready for the concert. And so the grandma is at the fundraiser, and they actually raised a whole lot of money from uh eno- from from an anonymous donor, and it's actually $100. And then Grandma Ruby says, "We're getting there, we're getting there." And then the security guards try to keep her back, and she says, I'm not the manager. I am not a security guard. I'm the grandma. I'm the real deal." And then the security guard says, "She's okay." And so she goes in there to see Miley. And she tells Miley, "What you're doing is a good thing and you should be proud of that." And the grandma says, "I know I am." And then she gives Miley the bracelet that her grandmother gave to her. No, no. She gives Miley a necklace that her mother had. And then Miley says, "Is this my mom's?" And then her grandma says, "Yeah, she would be proud of you too." And then she puts it in her bag and she says, "I'm just gonna keep it in my bag so I can have it with me with all my shows and everything." And then her grandmother says that she loves her, and Miley says that she loves her grandma too. And then they hug. And this to me was the sweetest moment out of the whole movie. Plus that scene with her and Robbie Ray singing her childhood song together. So Travis can see that she painted the barn and did the barn all by herself. And he runs to see the concert. But when Miley sees him, she realizes that that she cannot do this anymore. That she can no longer lie to who she really is. So she takes off the wig and she tells everybody that "you got their family. This is home for me." And the last time I stood on the stage, I was 6, and you can only ask a family to make so many sacrifices. So she takes off the wig and she sings "The Climb," which is one of the best songs in the whole movie. And then that little girl from the beginning of the movie that saw her run in and out of the restaurant tells her to please be Hannah and that they will keep their secret and, and, and that the little girls will keep and that the little girl will keep her secret. And then Miley says, I'm sorry, I can't, it's too late. And then Travis says, sure you can. And then Vita says, and then Vita says with Lily, oh, just put the wig back on. Vita says, you will never have a normal life if you don't. And then Lily says, Hannah the part of you. Don't let it go. And then they keep cheering. And then they start cheering, Hannah, Hannah, Hannah. And then she puts the wig back on. And then the reporter takes a picture. And then he runs away. And then everybody, Robbie Ray, Hannah, the manager, everybody catches up with him. And he says, not another step or I hit send. And then Robbie Ray says, don't do it, man. And then it turned out that that Vita gave his daughters 2 tickets to see the Hannah Montana concert. And when they first see her for the first time, she waves at them and the girls say, oh my gosh, I love you so much, you're so awesome. And then Vita says, look, you're not going to crush their dreams, are you? Because Hannah Montana, that's what they're all about. And so he says, no, that's not my story. Ruining this girl's life isn't my story. So he quits his job. He quits working for Lucinda, and and then everybody claps for him, and and and, and his daughter says, and his daughters say yay, and then Vita takes their takes takes all takes all these daughters out to the crowd so they can listen to Hannah Montana sing. But Travis tells Miley that, remember that crush that I had on you, Miley? Yeah, I'm still not over it. And then they kiss. And then we see a guy right by the billboard that they're behind, and he says, "Ride on." And then we cut to the last song of the concert. You can always find your way back home. And then it turned out that they raised enough money to save that they raised enough money to save Crowley Corners, and it ends with the concert being and it ends with the benefit concert being performed on the stage of her hometown in Tennessee, and everybody in the crowd is cheering her on and saying that they are so proud of her. And we got Vita there, we got Robbie Ray there with Lorelai, and they're kissing. Um, um, we got Jackson there. We got Lily there, who meets herself a cowboy, and that is the end of the movie. And she is saying, and, and she is singing. The last song is "You Can Always Find Your Way Back Home," and then it zooms out of the shot, and then it it says the end. And that is the end of the Hannah Montana movie. Bye, and I will see you guys in my next video.